You have my Tom Nook background for your iPad. He's a capitalist. He can't support that.
No, I think he's a very, like, he lets you pay off your debt in the seashells. He just wants you to enjoy your life.
No, I can't support
interest.
Tom Nook. Isabel's where it's
interest
at.
is here for home ownership. No. I also like the Nooklings. He like gave his like nephew's job.
Oh, I also call them Nooklings. He is a family man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, let's just have a consult when you're back. So I'm just kind of waiting until it's like.
That's another thing where I'm like, I need it, but I need things to go with it too. It's like
Oh,
red dragon.
I'm not on the right
Yes,
side.
attached to it.
Will you be okay with going down the slides on the iPad while I do this? Thank you so much for, I see some people came to my panel earlier too. Thank you for sticking around. Welcome to creating an inclusive J-fashion community. I'm really excited to talk to you all about this. It's really incredible to be in person with Jade after thank you. Thank you so much. 2 years of like remote events and seeing each other only over webcam, despite like at one point living very close to each other, but it never quite worked out.
Like,
Yeah, and then I
before you even
moved in the middle of the pandemic, so it's just real nice. I'm just really excited to talk to y'all about it. I think now is a really good time to start talking about community, and I know a lot of communities kind of grew inactive during the Panera Bread because of obvious reasons. So hopefully this also gives you some ideas to kind of revitalize a flagging community as well. Welcome everybody. Let's have fun. This is us. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. So my name is Jade. I also go by my handle, JadedIsland. I'm 27. I live in Maryland. I'm here in Vegas with you all, having a good time. Pink energy person. You'll see me around.
I'm Avina. I use they, them pronouns. I have modded Ruffle Chat and quite a few local comms. I started a Discord server when I still lived in Maryland for the DMV community out there. And I generally just really, really love finding and creating a community when I can. I currently live in Florida where I do not have a community because I live in a small town. And mask mandates are a little weird, so
But you have Disney, though.
I do have Disney. My meetups are at Disney World with just me and Demiki. So maybe I'm having the best meetups of them all. Who knows? So yeah, we've got our topics that I'd like to cover over the course of the panels. We're going to talk about rulemaking and moderated membership, mod selection, reporting, mediation versus banning, and just tools that Facebook and Discord specifically have, because I feel like those are kind of the two main places where J-fashion communities are being built right now. I think that's basically it. So yeah,
All right, making the rules. So we do want to encourage that you, when you're creating your group or your community, that you think about the rules ahead of time, think about any problems that might arise, try to anticipate that as much as possible. Do you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, you kind of want to keep them broad from the beginning, so then you can figure out how it gets applied day to day. If you do something like very specific, like let's say no blue is allowed, don't wear any blue at this in this comm, it gets rough because what if you got someone who joins who's like, I really love blue? So it's better to maybe focus on something broader. Like if you want to make something that's specifically for Gothic Lolitas, and you can say this is like a Gothic Lolita community. Generally if you're posting here or participating with this, you're just really into Gothic Lolita. That's something you can do. In like the general like local community mindset though, I think it's better to just kind of keep like a very broad, like no bigotry, no hate speech, but not try to like really like file down the nitty gritty, because let me tell you how quickly people are going to work around that. And then you're sitting here like adding rule after rule after rule for all of these like tiny little infractions that you could have captured with something that just says, be kind to each other. So
Yeah, I think a lot of Facebook groups that I saw, they added in like be kind to one another like immediately, especially after the summer or during the summer of 2020. So be kind is a really good rule to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to end up with like a rubric, like a grading rubric. You just want to have like this one big guideline, and you figure how your community fits in, because there's always going to be surprises, and it's just better to have a broader blanket. Oh, and I also wanted to touch on like just generally being receptive about new rules being added. Like maybe there's a perspective you didn't have, and someone brought that to the table. Like for example, I've usually had to bring up in some communities like the addition of pronouns, because like a lot of people get really used to the fact that, you know, these comms are like femme dominated, and will just be like calling everyone girl and she, and you know, that'll put some people in uncomfortable situations, me included. So it's like asking to like add some way of like putting a pronoun is really, really helpful. Facebook, as far as I know, I'll go into tools for this later. I don't think Facebook has much in the way of adding pronouns.
No, not yet. They're still behind in
Yeah.
a lot of things, to be honest.
Yeah. Like I know Instagram has added the ability, but that's not a good community building website. But Discord makes it great to add pronouns. So, yeah. So, yeah. Do you want to talk about moderating membership?
Yeah. So I can definitely speak on the Facebook side since I'm a little more active there. When you have people join your Facebook group, for instance, you can set questions to help kind of moderate who comes into the group. And if it was a leader group, for instance, obviously you want to make sure that the people who are joining the group kind of have a general idea of what it is and don't like assume that it's a costume, for instance. Like those are really good starter questions for that type of community. I will say that one thing that you can be careful about when adding those questions, make sure that your questions aren't, how do I say this, not sensitive towards some groups, if that makes sense. There was a Facebook group that had a moderating question that was anti-Black that I saw, and it was just like not a good, I mean, it definitely deterred me away from joining that group, but seeing that, I'm like, this is not a very open group, despite the fact that they said they were. I think it was like some pastel fashion group, and it was just not a good time. I know you've been off of Facebook, but does Discord have any moderating?
So Discord has a really, you can make all of the channels private unless you're assigned a specific role. So a moderator can like manually assign a role once they've approved of that member joining the group, and then they can see the entire Discord. Otherwise, they're just looking at the rules, which is really helpful. It makes sure that people actually read them rather than just blindly joining and then proceeding to break all the rules. So you can keep the channel that's got the rules public to people, and then they need to message a moderator and say, hey, I read the rules. They can answer some questions that you might pose to them, or in my case, I usually just ask for social media, and I just check to see that, you know, they appear to be someone who's dressing in some sort of alternative style, and then you can assign the role that lets them see the rest of the server.
Discord also offers the option to check for ages as well, and I think that's a really nice tool for Discord. Facebook doesn't have as much age security. They try, but it could be better. I think that there are some groups that need better age restrictions, and I think just Discord's better in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I do think it's fine to have some communities that do not allow minors, because the reality is, if you're allowing minors in the group, you as the moderator have to be incredibly careful to ensure that their photos aren't being circulated on other websites. You might even in some cases have to seek parental permission, and it can also be extremely awkward if a literal child shows up to the meetup unattended with a bunch of adults. So, you know, it's fine if you allow minors to join the community, but just know that you are going to have those extra layers of responsibility that you can't shirk or ignore, because it's just, it's important. This is a fashion that's like really attractive to all ages, and you want to be welcoming and you want to provide a safe space for kids to explore and understand a new creative side that they might not have tapped into before. But it's not always going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. If you know like your community is not going to work very well with minors in tow, I think it's fine to age gate your group. So yeah. So I actually put this in here because this is a question I got fairly often when I still hosted a lot of in-person meetups. I got people who were like, "Oh, is it okay if I bring like my sister or my significant other or somebody?" And depending on the group, I've seen some people straight up say like, no, they have to be like actively dressing in the fashion and in the community to attend a meetup. Others are perfectly fine, but you have to like impart on the person bringing them that they're responsible and they have to follow, like they're responsible for their guest and they have to follow the rules of the comm. So, you know, like somebody's like skinhead boyfriend.
Oh my God.
So like, that's unfortunately, you know, something that's kind of happened before where like someone brought, you know, a partner who was not respectful, who was like making fun of the queer folk and it's like, unfortunately, you know, not like it got to the point where it's all like this is going to fall on you for not like prepping your significant others to the rules of the community and the general like demeanor of the people involved. And if you're not going to respect that, you're both out. So
Yeah, I actually like the idea of communities allowing significant others because for some people who are differently abled, like myself, it is helpful to have my partner attend with me to events in case that I have like a medical emergency and just need someone to be there for support. So I'm all for it, but definitely make sure your partner is like kind of vetted in a way before attending those events.
Yeah. My husband always comes with me to stuff too, for similar reasons. It's just easier. I've had lots of issues with street harassment in the past, and it's just easier to have like a buffer there. So I do travel with my significant other a lot, and I've had to have that, you know, that respect the boundaries of the community. If for some reason they have a rule where they're saying like no significant others, you know, that might be something where you might have to rethink whether or not that's the right community for you, or figure out a workaround, or even just talk to the moderator and be like, hey, like, you know, my partner's gonna come wearing like a suit, like, is that fine? You know, like they'll try and dress up to match me, but they're not necessarily in the fashion. I just really want them around. I want them to experience this aspect of my life. And that, as a moderator, I think should be something that you should be open to if for some reason you do have a rule that's saying like no friends or significant other, friends or family that aren't involved in the fashion. I've seen it a few times, but generally I think when I build communities, I'm open to that for meetups to have like vetted people coming and enjoying as well, because like a lot of times you actually get to see someone like become converted and they're like, ooh, I'm gonna wear Lolita, and then like two meetups later they start showing up their friend. So it's nice, like, but yeah, you need to have like those like rules in place and just make sure that they're aware and make sure you're ready to be like both of you out if like they're not respecting your space. So yeah, this is a really quick little tidbit. Work with your neighboring communities. I see this a lot, especially like in areas where there's a lot of communities like clustered close together because of geography. Like the DMV community is a really good example. There's like the Maryland comm, the DC comm, the Northern Virginia comm. There's even like a Richmond, Virginia comm. So there's just a lot of communities in like a little radius that you can more or less drive in like 3 or 4 hours. And unfortunately, you'll see someone get banned from one place for like a bigoted comment, and then they just start attending meetups like the next community over. So if you're able to, you should build those relationships with moderators of other communities so you can be made aware. So you can make sure that like that entire area can, you know, make sure that there isn't someone who's like harassing somebody and just like skirting around the rules because they just go to another community.
I just want to add into, I think it's actually better to collab with neighboring communities. It allows for more growth. It'll make events better when more people can attend. Because sometimes it is just a small cluster of people who gather, and if there's a larger group 2 or 3 hours away that you guys can like come together and meet, it'll make everything a lot better. Unfortunately, I do have experience with a community that wasn't as open to collaborating, and then they were very picky about it. And it was just, it made things awkward when there were events like the Hello Kitty truck, for instance. And if we saw our group there and then their group, it was just a little uncomfortable, especially if you were friends with people in that community. So please collab with neighboring communities. It does help.
Oh yeah, and like allow cross-posting of events. That too. Like if you know that there's a community like 2 hours away, and this event, like maybe you're all going to see like a movie premiere that isn't available, like it only goes to like certain movie theaters, it's totally valid to like try and see if you can post it to a neighboring group. And just in general, just moderators should all be talking to each other. It just creates for a better like overall community if these conversations are being had. So yeah.
Ooh, mod selection.
So if this hasn't already made it very obvious, moderation is like very thankless work. For some people, for some reason, a lot of people think it's like glitz and glamour, like, ooh, you're like the ruler of the local comm. And it's like, no, not at all. It's usually a lot of like friendship mediation and stress, and someone skipped the bill, and like it's a lot of that. But you know, it's so for that reason, I just really encourage people to like have multiple moderators and constantly be selecting new mods, and be okay with the idea of just stepping down from moderatorship and letting other people take over if you get overwhelmed. It's totally okay. It's not a failing as a moderator. It's so easy to get burnt out. I've stepped down for my own like sanity a couple times too, so it's just important.
Yeah, moderating is definitely a labor of love, and unfortunately, we've seen some examples where a mod was not the best person to mod a community, and it creates a lot of drama that would have been avoided if we had better screening before allowing moderators. And I just think that the more moderators we have, the better, but of course, obviously be respectful of people's boundaries, their time, the emotional aspects of moderating a group, because it is very stressful. And honestly, I've modded a couple groups, and it's anxiety inducing, because if you're not available sometimes, you feel like you're not doing the best for your community, and you want to because like you care, and that's part of why people do mod, because they care about the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And a really good way to like do mod selection is to do like a Google form and pose like a hypothetical scenario to applicants and see if they have like the ability to like de-escalate and solve a situation. And they don't have to give a perfect answer, but as long as they're not saying anything like a little worrisome, like I'd immediately ban them, and it's like
That's a little power hungry.
that was not a bannable offense. You know, that's kind of something you need to suss out with the application process, and a really easy way to do it is Google Forms. Press the weird. Oh, I pressed the volume button. Okay, I didn't do anything else. The elephant in the room.
Ooh, tokenism. So, like I said previously, being a moderator is a labor of love, and it comes with its own responsibilities and its own emotional tax. When you are trying to recruit somebody to be a moderator, I think we should be a little more mindful of that person's boundaries, their availability, their time. Unfortunately, I've also been approached in a manner which someone wanted me to be a moderator because I am someone who is Black and in the community. And to be honest, life is super stressful if you're a Black content creator right now, and I don't always have the emotional energy to mod an entire group or be in a position to do stuff like that. And it's not fun. It gets awkward because like, how do I turn someone down from saying like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm tired and Black, and I don't really have the energy to moderate a group that doesn't do kindly to people with my skin tone at the moment. And it's stressful. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very used to being the only Indian person in a room.
Yeah.
And I've absolutely had people come up to me and be like, oh, like, as an Indian Lolita, could you like help me with this like very hyper-specific problem? And I'm just like, no, hello, how are you? No witnessing my public social media meltdowns, none of that.
I mean, at least buy me a drink first. Like.
Yeah, seriously. Wine and dine me if you're gonna try and like make me do some weird moderating thingy for you. But it's, you know, be mindful. I do think it's really nice that people are trying, but there's a better way to approach your local brown and Black person.
Like, don't beeline for them. Like, you know, maybe ask how their time is before asking.
Yeah, don't do that. But like, if you do find someone who is willing to moderate, who is a person of color, that is great and really helpful, because unfortunately there are a lot of microaggressions in the community that can happen day-to-day basis. Like, I know I have issues with hair touching.
Ooh,
And
hair.
I've had to, like, kindly tell someone, like, can you please stop touching my hair? And when that didn't work, I went to a moderator who was like, I don't see why that's such a big deal. Your hair is so beautiful. And it's like, so having a diverse moderating team, or at least people who are like more clued in to like what's going on, can kind of help with that. That'll make everyone a lot more comfortable in the community, and will also make it a lot more welcoming to people of color.
Yeah, and having moderators that like look like you makes the community feel more accessible for people who are new to joining. And honestly, I like seeing a group where the moderating team or the people who's in charge of the group are diverse, because then I'm like, oh, this is a group that I can like feel welcome in and comfortable with, and that's really important to me in my community experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we talk about this a lot with Kawaii Riot, but there's a lot of reasons why J fashion can be like very alienating. So it's for the best if you're like going out the gate, making sure that you're being as inclusive as possible. You don't want to have to tack on that rule at a later date. It just doesn't look good when you have to do that.
Yeah,
so,
the last minute additions are not fun.
no, not at all. So I hate that I have to say this, but this has happened multiple times. You want to treat communities and moderating duties as voluntary positions with term limits. If you cannot handle moderating anymore, be prepared to hand it over to to either an existing moderator who's still able to handle it, or open up your mod applications and get people to take over. What really stinks is when you've gone through so much effort to build like this active and thriving community, and then you proceed to squander it all because you either don't have the time to moderate what's happening within, or start discussions, or encourage meetups. So, just if you move away, if you're really tired and you just really don't think you can do it anymore, if you leave the fashion, please turn over moderating duties. After a certain point, the moment one member joins your community, it's no longer just yours. It's officially belonging to a collective. And as more and more people join, you owe it to them to keep that alive even after you think you're done. So yeah, I hate that I have to say this, and I feel like it should be a lot more obvious, but just don't shut down communities, don't delete them out of the blue. Try and make sure you've got something under your belt so you can let someone else take over.
Honestly, treating moderating like a seasonal thing is good. Think of it like the temp jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a good way to I guess, what is what I'm looking for? Model your application process too. So I think for Kawaii Riot, I had it every 2 quarters. I would open up applications, and I thought that was the best way to keep things fresh and to make sure that the group was still thriving and growing. You don't have to do that exactly for your group, but just keep that in mind to have an option to open up every few months, every quarter, whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I can get caught up in my own head sometimes too, so it's just nice to have other moderators there to kind of bounce ideas off of or come to a solution together. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
Reporting, I don't know if I can really speak on it without a little bias. Because I've seen reporting in groups being misused, overused, and then underused. So it's kind of hard for me to say anything.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I think reporting really can only operate if you give off the vibe of a trustworthy moderator and community.
Yeah.
So if you are starting your community fresh, you want to make sure you come off as professional, trustworthy, and kind of always listening. You do not. No, that's not a surveillance state. Not like that. I just mean open-hearted. You don't want to be closed off.
Reporting, I think it is a very effective tool for making sure the community stays safe, but some people do abuse that option, especially on Facebook. I've seen friends get the 30-day Facebook ban, or as I say, Facebook jail, for saying something in retaliation for someone commenting something that wasn't inclusive or something that was harmful towards an entire group, but they got banned because they got reported by people who are not so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Like having an anonymous reporting system is sometimes helpful. I've had to implement that before when people felt uncomfortable coming to the mods for a variety of reasons, either because they were complaining about a close friend of the moderating team or something like that. So having like an anonymous like Google form that you can like that you just keep pinned to the top of your community. This can work either on Discord or on Facebook. That's like one way to like try and encourage people to like be a little bit more comfortable with coming forward and reporting an issue.
Yeah, and mods can be held accountable just as equally as community members. So like, don't feel, I guess, reluctant to report a mod if they're behaving out of pocket, to put it in simple terms. Just report them because they are also responsible for what their actions are and how it impacts the community.
Absolutely, and that's why multiple moderators are so important, because if one moderator is kind of acting out, you've got the backup moderator that you can go to either in person and be like, hey, like I'm having issues, or you at least know that the community will be in good hands once the other moderator is gone for whatever reason.
Yeah, I've seen some mods act very poorly in social media, so it is
Yeah.
helpful to have that reporting feature.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why we want to talk about like building it from the ground up, because sometimes like the existing community can already be like too broken and like there is no fixing it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with starting a new group if you feel like you're seeing like repeat issues in the community, either with like inactive or insensitive moderating, or just a group that's kind of the wild, wild west. Like like too much shit posting.
Yeah, the internet is a very interesting place.
Yeah.
Ooh, mediation versus banning. So I like mediation because I do think that when you are being held accountable, if you have room to grow and learn, I really appreciate that, and I love to see more actions for that. Versus banning. So banning is like the immediate action, the complete cutoff, and some people do definitely need to be banned for sure. But if mediation is something that you're going to offer, make sure that whoever is mediating is someone who's going to be neutral, who's going to be open, who's going to be, I guess, emotionally prepared to mediate between two parties or two groups of people. I don't think I've ever been in a mediation situation with the online community. I've always been in person mediation. How about you?
So I have a pretty good like hypothetical, maybe might be based on real events, situation for when mediation was like really handy, and it's unfortunately something I hear happens pretty often in Lolita communities, and that's you all have like a tea party and one person skipped out on the bill. That is a really good mediation opportunity because there's a lot of reasons why someone might have done that. Either they spaced or, like maybe there was like a bit of malice there, but you can bring them around and make them like send the money to the person who did cover the bill. It opens up grounds for like a conversation. And if the person is not receptive and they're doubling down and, like you can clearly see that like, okay, I have the bill in front of me. This other comm member covered the bill because they just left. And they're still denying that, then you can maybe start talking about banning somebody. But usually most people, honestly, it was complete accident. They just spaced out. Their ride came and they just left without realizing they didn't pay the bill yet, or the bill hadn't come yet.
Oh, we almost had it happen yesterday, actually. But yeah, so in the case of banning, I have seen people get banned from a community, and a lot of those cases I feel didn't give enough time for mediation. So I would prefer, or I'd like to see more of mediation before banning, but I don't think that banning is necessarily a bad thing, especially if someone's like really crossing the line. There are some people who I think should have been banned from certain groups a lot faster, but some people are afraid to do that because they feel like it's like too mean, too aggressive. But when you are leading a community or you're moderating a community, it is important to have that stern stance. Yes, we want to be kind to each other, but we also want to be respectful to the community as a whole. Because like once you have more than one person, it is not just your group; it is a entire group. It is a community.
Yep, absolutely important. So yeah, bouncing off of that, perfect timing. I do not recommend the 3-strike rule. This is like very common in a lot of settings. I think it's more important to treat everything on a case-by-case basis, because like the 3-strike rule is too vague. Like, what if the first thing they said is like a racial slur, and then you're like, oh, strike 1, and it's like, what follows that? So, like the 3-strike rule gives people a little bit too much leeway if they are an issue.
Yeah, and I think the problem with it too is like, yes, you're getting strikes, but like after your first strike, are you actually working to fix that? Are you unlearning those behaviors? Are you doing anything to hold yourself accountable after that first strike? Or are we just immediately collecting another strike after that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, also I feel like the 3-strike rule can sometimes hurt people who, might have problems with social cues. Because I've seen that happen where, it was a simple misunderstanding where mediation needed to kind of come in. But because from the outside, it did look like it already like hit a strike, that person now has 2 more chances to survive this community. Like it's a little rough. Like I just don't think taking this approach is very helpful in a legal context. The 3-strike rule has actually never worked and has only just incarcerated like people with who've done like very like minor victimless crimes for longer prison sentences. So like even though this sounds like a tangent, it works on like a smaller hobby scale too. Very rarely does the 3-strike rule actually deter someone from doing like incurring another strike, because it usually doesn't actually like try to tackle the heart of the issue, which is, why did this person already kind of get in trouble with the moderating team in the first place? Like, what are we looking at here? So yeah, this is a situation that comes up a lot, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. There'll be someone who's like part of the community, but on their personal Facebook, they're posting a lot of like bigoted content, like hateful language, but because they're not posting it in the actual community, the moderators are like throwing their hands up in the air. And they're like, well, they're nice at meetups. Like they don't seem to have problems like in person. And I'm here to say that should be a bannable offense. If their Facebook account is like open to other members of the community to like add and like look at, that means they've officially like exposed like those members of the community to language that can be like deeply disrespectful, hurtful, and would have been bannable if Facebook wasn't an online space and people were like sitting next to each other. Like I feel like a better way to look at social media is like this is like the person in like the corner of the room who's like saying like heckling the comedian or something, but like everyone else like maybe didn't hear them heckle, so they're like we don't need to eject him from the audience. And it's like, but the people closest to the guy heard him. The comedian might have heard him.
So actually, if you don't mind me being a little personal here, actually let me get a sip of water before I open my mouth. I had something like this arise in a community that I was in. I saw something that they posted on their personal Facebook, and I was like, hey, this is like a little unsafe for me as a Black femme in this community. And I did let the leaders at B know about it, but they're like, oh no, it's fine or whatever. And like that person was still gonna go to meetups and stuff. And I'm like, I feel unsafe being in the presence of this person because their views are in their own way attacking my community and people that look like me, and they feel comfortable enough to share it with me, but I don't feel comfortable to be in that space with them. And the moderator at the time did not help the situation. They kind of like ignored it and pushed it aside, and it made going to meetups after that very uncomfortable for me. And it got to the point that I had to ask if that person was going to be there at those meetups, because like I didn't want to be around this person. Like they were saying some things that were like very, very against my general morals for life. Obviously, it was about police officers, if you couldn't guess, and it was just not a good time. And having situations like this pop up frequently in the community, I've noticed, I want our community to be more inclusive and more safe, but you also have to realize that when we have situations like this, people like me and Avina, when we feel unsafe and we are trying to challenge that by letting you know that we want to be safe in this community or at these events, it takes courage and bravery to do that. And having a moderator or a community leader dismiss that it's painful, to be honest. So I'm hoping that in the future that this group will do better. I'm still kind of holding out on that personally, but it doesn't mean that I've lost all faith in community meetups in my area, but it'll take time, it takes work, and obviously a lot of patience, and it is a labor of love to moderate, so I understand that, but at the same time, let's be open to hearing what community members are saying when there are situations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also shows a double standard because, like, for us, we can't just not be Black or brown or queer or...
Yeah, I can't take this
like,
off at the end of the day.
yeah. That, like, I mean, I can wipe the makeup off, but it's still going to be brown underneath. And, you know, you're allowing people to, like, say one thing and then act differently at a meetup, which is not a luxury that, you know, people of color have. So by saying that you're okay with someone like shedding this like problematic skin when they enter like a community situation, and it doesn't matter if like, you know, the brown people in the community have witnessed what was like going down and were made uncomfortable by this person as a result. And I'm using kind words like uncomfortable, but it's a lot worse than that.
It's very layered.
Yeah, it's so, you know, like it's basically showing that you care more about, you know, the feelings of a bigot than you do the comfort of the people of color in your community. And that speaks volumes for the example that is probably being set in the larger community as well.
Whew, gotta take a breath after that one.
Oh, I know.
Facebook groups.
Yes, I'm gonna let you do this because you know more about Facebook than I.
I do, unfortunately. So we have mentioned before that with Facebook groups, you can set moderator questions before people join the group. Another tool that Facebook has, they do have rules in place now. It's been a while since I've created a Facebook group. I'm sure they've changed it like a little bit, but probably not that much. They still don't have the pronoun feature. Age restrictions are kind of a hit or miss, but I do like that Facebook groups is allowing more closed spaces. So something that I've liked recently with Facebook is that events within Facebook groups can be just for the group itself, it's not a public affair. So that's nice for like privacy and security. I mean, how much security can we get on Facebook really? But you know, we gotta work with what we got. Facebook groups, they're okay. It's just the best way I can say it. I definitely would prefer Discord groups over that. I will say, though, that Facebook's algorithms aren't really kind to marginalized identities of any kind. So they do kind of have a very weird, I guess, like in their code thing, like ban for like trigger words or code words. So that makes it difficult for a Facebook group to grow. And I'll talk a little bit more about that since I've been working with Facebook for the past year, and I will give you some of my insights on what that experience is like a little bit later, not right now.
I love talking about Discord tools because there's so much fun stuff that you can use for Discord moderation. There's a bunch of bots that you can install that help either explain the rules to people, assign roles, assign pronouns. They're all like, I'm someone who, I don't really consider myself extremely tech savvy, but going to the websites for these bots, they do a really good job of explaining how to install them and how to customize them for your community. I have a screen cap from one of my Discord communities for a UE bot. This is how we assign pronouns in the community. It's really, really easy. You literally just hit the corresponding emoji. So, you know, if you want the she, her role for those pronouns, you'd hit the little red sparkle. So it's cute, first of all, which is, I think, very important, and it's also just super easy for the members to use. It might be a little bit of a learning curve to install it, but it's honestly, I don't think it's that bad. I would say like take a day, like an afternoon, to like really sit down and figure out how to install the bots.
Honestly, if you remember making your pages for MySpace, you'll get to Discord pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I mentioned this earlier, you can like lock certain channels, so people have to have a specific role to see it. for me, like sometimes there's a mental health channel.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
if, you know, you don't really want to see that sort of content, there's people need to be assigned a role to even see it in the first place. So it's a really good way to make sure that, you know, everyone is like consenting to what they're seeing. I also, like, you can also just mute channels and stuff like that and hide them. So it's generally just really, really nice. I just keep one channel open that's got the rules. And one thing that I have noticed is if the owner of the Discord leaves transfers ownership and leaves the Discord, but they were the ones that made the rules might disappear. So before you do that, just make sure you've copy pasted it and the next moderator has like posted the rules again, so they wouldn't just disappear into thin air once you like leave the group. Oh yeah, this is like the excuse I always hear whenever I'm like encouraging people to like leave Facebook. Leave Facebook. I left in 2015. It was the best decision of my life. They're like, oh, Facebook has like better event management and event planning. Let me tell you about Apollo Bot, another very easy bot to install. I have a screen cap of what it looks like. This is people in a server I'm a part of trying to get together for a tabletop gaming group. So you can see who's accepted to do that session, who's declined, and who's tentative. And it tells you the time for everything, and he even reminds you. He will ping you if you're part of. So at the top, you can see @Wanderhome. That is the role for the people who are in the tabletop group. So he pings the role. So those are automatically the players in the group, and then says, "Hey, reminder, you've got a session coming up." So. Very good. We love him. The Facebook, half the notifications, like I remember when I was using it, like I wouldn't get event notifications sometimes because Facebook just decided they're not, like the likes you're getting on your photo was the more important notification.
Well, nowadays, Facebook prioritizes video content because they are trying to compete with TikTok. Obviously, everyone's competing with TikTok. So they're now prioritizing video content. When it comes to event notifications, they are actually very last minute. Our panel isn't sponsored by Discord, obviously, and I'm not trying to like 100% like shit on Facebook, but low key, I kind of am. Discord is definitely better in a lot of ways, and it is more adaptive, and it's a growing platform, whereas Facebook is a little antiquated and needs a lot of changes. I don't know if there's another slide on Facebook that you have. What's the next one?
What did I put next? Go ahead. Oh, nope, it's just me talking about Discord more.
Oh, no,
You wanna
that's
talk-
fine. Yeah, I was going to add in, so something about Facebook's algorithms that I don't really care for. They don't have enough moderation. So for someone who's on the business side of Facebook, whenever you post like an ad, for instance, for your event, and it's something that's public and shared within like whatever your target audience is, they don't have any form of comment moderation besides maybe limiting comments, and even that it just doesn't really work. And people will say whatever they want, and that will ruin whatever that ad is for your events. I've seen that happen. I've also experienced it myself. Facebook's reach is very big, yes. But at the same time, the drawback is that without that moderation, anybody can say anything. And it's just like a nightmare to see people commenting, especially for us in alternative fashion. People who don't know anything about it will say whatever they want. And that's painful to see, especially if you're trying to host something or run something that's important that is related to the community, and it just gets ruined.
It's funny because I'm talking about installing bots on Discord, but there is a bot problem on Facebook as well.
Yeah, there is.
And in fact, the Royal Vegas Facebook group had a bot that like was claiming they had tickets to sell. So, you know, it just saw that it was a ticketed event, and then this bot commented being like, "Oh, I can no longer attend, and I have a ticket that I'm willing to sell," which like, no, they were not. They were a bot. If you went to their profile, they were not a Lolita. It was like complete rando. The account had only been like...
Speaking about events, so Facebook's event feature now has the option where you can do an outside of Facebook link for buying tickets, and sometimes that is like, it doesn't really work well, and I had that kind of like flop for a couple of things that I was hosting, and they're just not kind to things that are off Facebook's platform in general. Like I said, this is not a sponsored by Discord panel, but low-key ditch Facebook groups for Discord.
Yeah, and like I mean, Discord has had its issues with content moderation in the past, but I feel like they're actively trying to do more than Facebook and Twitter for that matter have
Well, I
tried
mean,
to do. Which is,
Facebook has what they call their safety schools, but once again, they don't have great moderation for their comments. Like Instagram, for instance, I actually love the idea that like people who comment on my content are only people that follow me, and that kind of like stops the bots and people who are just trolling random Instagrammers. And so I like that, but they don't have that same feature for Facebook itself, and so it's very annoying.
yeah, and I think Instagram also lets you flag certain language. So if you unfortunately get the same sort of like insults sung at you, you can actually make those comments immediately get filtered out. So it's helpful. Just some more like little fun Discord things, and like we were talking about like kind of the gloomy like housekeeping stuff, but you can make like Discord bots say fun things. Like I made one that said you've been blessed by Mana-sama, and it's basically to encourage people to keep posting. So if they post enough, they'll get another "you've been blessed by Mana-sama" comment from a bot.
Honestly, I love the goofy bots that I see on Discord. There was one where you could comment and then the bot would give you a compliment or a GIF in return. It was just so cute. I loved it. The anime ones were my favorite. I'm in a couple of Discords outside of the fashion too.
Oh
so.
yeah. I love custom emojis. Like they're really easy to make, and a lot of people have fun like taking like kamikaze girl like screen caps, making like, little emojis you can respond with. This old school Discord I'm in has like the baby logo, which is like a heart shape as like their standard heart response, which is very cute. It's a sweet touch. And also you can color code usernames, and UEBot, which I talked about a few slides back, is really good for just assigning a pretty pastel color to your username and letting other people assign their favorite color as needed. So yeah, I personally like roles to be color coded, so it's easy for me to tell if like if that's a moderator or like someone who. Like I had a color coding by like location for one of the Discords I started, which was really handy because we kind of had a cluster of different cities present in the same Discord. So people who lived in like certain parts had different colored names, and it was helpful for kind of understanding like, oh, okay, this is someone in this city who's trying to like get a meetup started. So you can immediately look at it and know like how far you have to drive, basically. So yeah. We said we'd talk about this. Suggestions for revitalizing an inactive community.
I think if your leading team or your moderating team is a little inactive, it is good to kind of like refresh them a little bit, get some new blood in there. New ideas and perspectives are always healthy for a growing group. I definitely advocate for that. And also allowing your group to not just have older members in leadership positions, but also younger members. They have different perspectives. They bring new insights, wisdom sometimes. It helps to not be kind of biased against how old someone is for leading communities. That's just one of my tips.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of times too, people are like, oh, the moderator like needs to be someone who's like always the best dressed as well, which like I just, that doesn't make sense. Like if they're a people person, if they have like the what's the word, like emotional fortitude for moderating, like that's the more important factor. And like I always say, like, comms in general should allow everyone to like host a meetup. I've been in comms where it was restricted, where the moderators had to approve the meetup and then post the meetup themselves. And that is really stifling. It makes it really hard for people to just be like, hey, I'm like gonna go catch this movie and then I'm gonna go to this restaurant. Does anyone wanna come with me? That will be fun. I don't wanna go to the movies alone. And like, it encourages that sort of impromptu gathering, which is so important for keeping a comm active. Like even if there's like 5 meetups with only 3 people attending, that is much more active than, a place that only has like a yearly meetup with like 20. You just want like a consistently active membership. This applies even for like virtual things. Like if someone's like, hey, I want to stream this TV show, let's all like watch it together. You want to encourage that. You don't want to like have to be like, oh, me as the moderator, I need to approve this and then post it myself. So like I'm really against like host like or meetup moderation to that degree. Like obviously like, if it sounds like the meet's like a scam or something, like someone's asking for a bunch of money up front, and like it just sounds like a little skeevy. Of course, step in, but for the most part, like people just want to like hang out with like-minded individuals and make new friends, and you don't want to give them extra steps and extra hoops to go through to do that. So yeah, hosting a meetup is like the really obvious way to revitalize an inactive community. I also encourage doing like monthly dress-up themes. So it just like gets people's like blood flowing for like a new outfit, or even if they just want to like post a hypothetical outfit that like matches the theme.
Oh, I want to add into housekeeping-wise for leading a group, being transparent with your community about circumstances within that group is also really important. So if you have been inactive, just be honest about that. That goes a lot farther than just saying nothing and like letting things go. I found that transparency works really well in general for a lot of things in J fashion and community building. I like being transparent with my group personally, so I think it's very helpful. I don't know if you see a lot of transparency in other groups that you've been in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I mean, for me, like, I move around a lot. So if I'm a moderator, I'll be like very frank about the fact, like, hey, my moving date's coming up and we need someone to replace me, because it's not fair for me to be moderating a local community when I'm like hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And that's unfortunately something I've also seen before, where someone isn't even local or like lives in the community anymore, is still a moderator. You want to try and avoid that, because it's important that the moderators are also like playing a hand and ensuring that more like local events are happening and the local community just has something to like constantly engage with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, wow, we ended right on time. We did it. We did it.
If you have any questions about community building, Avina and I will be around all the time this weekend. So you can definitely come up and ask us. You can also reach out to us on our personal platforms. I'm actually pretty open to talking about inclusive community building a lot. It's one of the things I'm very passionate about. So definitely don't feel hesitant to reach out to me about it. I don't know if you're also offering that as well.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down. Yeah. This is the sort of thing I like to talk about. I feel like all too often it's kind of tokenism. So I'd rather it
a little
be
bit.
a constructive discussion about, what it takes to build a community. And I am old and weathered from my years on Ruffle Chat. So I've witnessed every horror story imaginable. Don't worry.
And honestly, I just want to see more brave spaces in general. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. And if I can encourage more of them, I am more than happy to offer my creative influence to it as much as possible.
Yeah,
But yeah.
absolutely. So thank you, everybody.
Yes,
Thanks for
thank
tuning in.
And have fun in Vegas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm overwhelmed with my options. And if anyone has questions, feel free to ask them. I think
Yeah,
we
I
have
don't think
a
I'm-
single minute left.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions that you wanted to ask us like real quick? Feel free. Is there another event after this one?
It's a fashion show, but they're still setting up. They're gonna have to set up and
So
stuff.
we might have time for like maybe like one or two questions.
Yeah. So feel free.
Unless Alexis tells us from the back that we do not. We're
Okay,
good?
I get a thumbs up. So
All right, cool.
yeah. So let us know if you have any questions.
Questions, concerns, thoughts, experiences you guys want to share? Is anybody building a community in the audience by any chance, or hoping to create one soon or revitalize one?
Is someone playing any fun tabletop games? Like I'm like honestly like really impressed by people who can get a tabletop game together, because that's like 10 grown adults dedicating.
Honestly, I love that D&D has gotten more adapted to virtual meetups and things. Oh, is this a question? Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh yay! I have that same hat. I love it. It's very cute.
Thank you. You may have covered this in the panel. I may not have seen it.
Speak a little closer to the mic.
You may have covered it already in the panel, but I'm not sure if I heard it. What would your advice be for someone who's trying to hire moderators or recruit moderators?
Any call to action post, I think, is a very good way to start looking at recruiting moderators instead of just like approaching who you think should be a moderator. When you do a call to action post on social media, for instance, then you'll see how much interest people have in being a moderator, because there are a lot of people who are interested in modding communities and would love to, given the opportunity, but if they don't know, then they don't know, and all that all that investment will be like lost because you didn't post about it. So just make a general post and see who has interest. And if there isn't enough in one space, try a different space, because sometimes a moderator doesn't necessarily have to be immediately within your social media space, could be outside of it as well.
Yeah, to add to that, we talked about it briefly earlier, but just having like a form that someone can fill out with like hypothetical scenarios, so you can kind of like figure out if they have the skills to moderate a community. That's really helpful. I love my skip the bill scenario. Honestly, it's like low stakes, but also frustrating and unfortunately common. So just ask someone, what would you do if someone came to you and told you that another comm member skipped the bill at the last meetup? Like, how would you tackle that scenario? And that's a really good way to kind of gauge if someone's moderating material.
Thank you for the question. That was a very good
thank you.
question. Any other questions? Welcome to come up. If not, then I guess Avina and I will go and be beautiful elsewhere instead of in front of you.
Yeah, we'll flutter away.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming to our panel, and I'm happy to see so much interest in making sure that we have inclusive communities. This does give me a lot of hope for the future, and I'm excited to see how we grow as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what y'all create or do or inspire.
Honestly, just invite me to your Discord servers. I'm trying to get off Facebook as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.